Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's show, where I will be sharing insights around prompt engineering, which is this phenomenal new field of engineering that is rising because of artificial intelligence, automation, and this sense of machine learning. So today I'm going to be sharing insights in terms of how you, whether you are unemployed, underemployed, in employment, trying to get back into work because you need to unretire, or really feel as if you need to upgrade your skills, prompt engineering could be the field that helps you to liberate yourself in one form or another. But before I dive into any of that, if you're new here, welcome. Feel free to say hello, put it in the chat. I think I've got the chat enabled. And welcome to today's show. My name is Bybreen Samuels, and I help baby boomers reinvent themselves psychologically, practically, and technically so they can thrive in the third act of their life. So what is this new field of prompt engineering? So if we think about Siri and Alexa, have you ever wondered how do they actually understand and interpret the voice prompts that we give them? Well, it actually falls into this field of prompt engineering. And in essence, what it is, it's a way for machines to intelligently understand how we as humans can relate to it by using voice control, which is fantastic. So what it enables us to do is to actually build these intelligent systems that enable us to really utilize this rise of artificial intelligence. So what is it actually built on? What are the components of prompt engineering? Well, really, it's about natural language processing, as well as machine learning and having a user interface. So what does that all mean? Well, with regards to natural language processing, it is the ability to learn, the machine learns, and it responds to voice prompts. So if we think about, for example, Siri, which is an Apple product, it's a voice controlled product. So it's actually being powered by this use of natural language processing. And then if we think about YouTube, as well as, other products like Netflix, for example, that recommend, the second component is around machine learning. And so the idea here is, we are all familiar with Netflix as well as YouTube, and we start watching videos and we watch another video, and this is when it starts to kick in. It starts to learn our inputs. So machine learning, again, is the ability to learn and respond to data. And this is really what lies at the heart of prompt engineering. It's the ability to turn the data, whether it's data you provide as a data set, or whether it's data sets that have been provided, let's say, like from Google or from a company called WeChat, which is in China, and it has billions, trillions of pieces of data that are used with regards to actually moving forward in a way whereby it uses the data that we have and then it interprets that data. So they are like the core components. And then thirdly is this user interface. And the user interface, just imagine you're going into an app or you're going into a website. It's literally what you see on the screen. So they are the kind of core components of this prompt engineering. Now, who could this type of world appeal to? So if you're somebody who's a natural tinkerer, a few months ago, I did a video called To Code or Not to Code. And it's not necessarily ruling anybody out, but it is about understanding the type of person that you are. Are you somebody who's more in the communication side of things as opposed to deconstructing and putting things together, really curious about how that all works? Well, prompt engineering could speak to both of you, but actually it leans more, I suppose, towards those who are really into the tinkering and building of things. So the systems that it actually uses is where you've got this idea, You now want to create something like a chatbot. You're thinking about, well, where do I actually start? So the kind of programs, the programming languages that are usually associated when you're looking at prompt engineering is Python, which is a back-end language, as well as JavaScript, which is a more of a front-end interactive language. So when we go onto websites and when we go onto apps, the whole idea is that once we put our data in, and then JavaScript will begin to interpret it. But I would say I would park those languages, any kind of programming languages, I would park them to one side. And I wish I knew this when I started learning about engineering. And if I was to re-enter, if I was to start again from complete scratch, I would actually do it this way around. There is a fantastic course called Harvard CS50. And it's a basic introductory course, very accessible. You know, many a Friday night, I had a glass or two of red wine and would listen to this fantastic professor called Professor David Malan. And he steps us through the fundamentals of computer science. So I came to the world of technology when I was 54, had no idea, I'd never seen a line of code, and actually had no understanding. I don't have that much more understanding of computer science. But if I were to start the engineering journey again, I would do it this way around. I would dive into the Harvard CS50. And don't worry, after this live stream, I will put the links in the video once it's kind of YouTube has done its thing. It is fantastic because it gives the fundamentals of, you know, web development and programming and software engineering, but really looking at, you know, data structures and variables and algorithms and what they are in just that very accessible way. He's brilliant. Which then gives you the beginnings of the building blocks to understanding prompt engineering. So you're not overwhelmed. You're not thinking, oh, I can never do this. It's so inaccessible. You can. It just takes a little bit of patience, and he's really accessible. So once you've gone through his course, and you can do it free, or if you wanted to do the certificate, you could equally do that. Once you've done that, then take a look at JavaScript and Python. But what's great is that once you've gone through his course, it then kind of gives you the foundations, because, you know, whether it's a loop or whether it's a conditional, whether it's an if statement, whether it's a variable, these are components of the kind of programming languages that are familiar. You know, every single programming language has this as its basis. So you'd already be au fait with some of this. And again, explore Python, explore JavaScript, but not necessarily in an intensive way. Once you've got a handle on that, you're thinking about, you know, you're holding the kind of ideas around, well, how does Siri work? And, you know, what about Alexa and these chatbots? You know, you're beginning to familiarize yourself, and you're thinking in terms of, when we connect with the Alexas, we're asking it a question. We're searching for information, but we're just using our voice. So once you've gone through, you know, a basic understanding of JavaScript as well as Python, the next thing to look at is this natural language processing. I've already indicated in terms of, you know, Siri uses it, and it's the way that we engage with machines so that it can understand and interpret what it is that we're seeking answers to. And this is where this natural language processing comes in. Once you've had a bit of a handle on that, then you're going to move on to machine learning, which literally is at the core of, you know, this whole idea of prompt engineering. And machine learning is the ability for machines to take input, i.e. data, learn from that data sets, large amounts of information, interpret the data, and then use the kind of outcome of that to improve the efficiency of the machine, to be able to exponentially grow the ways in which this data could be used in a way that us as humans, we just don't have that capacity to do it in such infinite detail. And on top of this, what machine learning does, it's kind of programming, it's self-programming the machine, which means that, engineers don't have to physically go in and program it because it's learning from the data in a way that's really meaningful. So that's where you would start. You would start looking at this. You would start with the JavaScript. You would go back, you would actually start with, the David Malan course, this sense of the Harvard CS50, having these fundamentals around computer science. What does it mean? And then we're looking at the JavaScripts and Python. Then we're going to the natural language processing, then machine learning. And then you're thinking about, okay, how could I begin to pivot all of this? Do I have to actually build it from scratch? Or is there another way that I can tap into it? So there are platforms, that you could begin to practice what it is that you're learning. You could use ChatGPT, for example, to practice, or there's another platform called TensorFlow, where you can start practicing the building of your idea. Now, there's a company called Copy.ai. I don't know whether it did use ChatGPT, but it has used this machine learning platform to build its service. So these platforms allow you to build on top of them, which is a fantastic way for you to start putting together your minimum viable products. It's a way for you to kind of, road test it, basically. So you're thinking about, okay, so what do I do now? How do I begin to put it together? Do I use TensorFlow? You could start exploring. Now, I want you to begin connecting your previous experience. As baby boomers, we've lived at least 5 decades, worked for at least 3/4 decades, maybe even 5 decades. How could we start pulling together the expertise from our own background through to connecting it with this new technology? So let's take the world of retail. Let's say you're somebody who's been immersed in the world of retail, whether you've been on the shop floor, or whether you've been in a management role. It doesn't really matter, but you have a sizable experience and knowledge base around how the world of retail actually works. So just think, with that depth of knowledge around that particular niche, you could propose, you could offer as a service, create a chatbot to improve customer engagement. Or let's say that you know how the shopping trends work and you know how to connect in a way with customers. You could actually build a system that is a personalized shopping experience for customers. And this is a way whereby you can bring your expertise, it's lived expertise, together with marrying it with new technology. Let's take a look at the world of construction. So you've worked in the world of construction, whether you've been on a construction site, whether you've been as a project manager, really doesn't matter. The idea is that you have deep knowledge and insight of that particular sector or any industry that you're part of. So what you could do is actually build a digital assistant, and this assistant would actually provide real-time data and advice to somebody who's working on a building site. How cool is that? Instead of, doing it in a manual way. Let's now think of the world of advertising. So you have an understanding, let's say you were a media buyer, for example. What you could do here is help advertising agencies put together, a voice assistant in some way, or a chatbot, or some type of digital product that is systematized in a way that could help them improve client engagement, or it could help them from a more of an operational point of view, where they're beginning to think about how could they improve where they place their ads. All of this is a way that allows you as a baby boomer or somebody who's been significantly out of the world of work, but you've built up this fantastic skill set, how you can begin to marry it with new technology in the area of this kind of prompt engineering. It's fascinating. So you've thought of your idea, you've got a sense of how you can begin to approach it. Now, how would you practice? How would you kind of connect with people? Well, you could go to meetups. That's one way of, and it doesn't matter. Don't think, oh, I'm too old, I'm going to look funny with my gray hair, or, I'm not techie and what would they think of me? I want you to park all of that and instead bring forward your intrinsic, fantastic value that you have to offer the world. Because the whole idea is for you to tap into your unfair competitive advantage. I'm going to come to that in a minute. But this idea of, going to meetups, and so whether you dive into the engineering side of things to build this intelligent system, or whether you're going to use prompt engineering from this point of view. Imagine you're going onto GPT or any of the other machine learning type of platforms. You're going to now turn it into, or you're going to create a role for it. So the role could be you're an experienced doctor. So you would type in, as an experienced expert doctor, I'd like more information around oncology. I'm suffering with X, Y, and Z symptoms. So here's how you begin to really develop prompt engineering just from putting in prompts. The fact that you're giving the machine a role, a title, helps the machine to understand the context from which you want it to operate within, which then allows it to pull on, extensive pieces of information to give you a more nuanced and precise answer. And so developing the ability to ask intelligent questions of the likes of ChatGPT is really going to help you. So that's another way. If you don't want to go down the engineering route, literally building it out, you could be using it from asking it intelligent questions. The second way to engage with this is through hackathons. So even before I knew what a line of code looked like, I went to, somebody told me, why don't you go to a hackathon? You're really enthusiastic. And this was maybe 2 or 3 weeks after me finding this world of technology, or it found me. Anyway, it was literally on my birthday. So on my birthday and the day after, I spent the whole weekend at a hackathon, and it was the Unilever hackathon. And it was fantastic. I mean, my mind was just blown. And a hackathon basically is an environment that brings together like a multidisciplinary team of people who were trying to solve commercial problems for Unilever. It was around improving the customer experience. And so, you could be a researcher, you could be a student, you could be a consumer, you could be an engineer, you could be a data analyst. You could be anybody, but the idea is that you work together in teams to come up with solving problems. That's another way whereby you're beginning to familiarize yourself in the world of technology, which is non-onerous. You can just go, you can observe, you can participate to whatever extent that you feel you could actually participate within. So that there are 2 different ways in which to do it. Now, there is another way, and the other way is that you don't have to build it from scratch. Why? Because you have things called machine learning platforms. And an example of a machine learning platform is Google AutoML. It's a cloud-based machine learning platform which has pre-built, the models, which is fantastic. So it's really for the complete, non-techie person. You want to do something, you don't want to go deep into the tinkering side of things, but here is a way whereby you can begin to build it by using these pre-built platforms, which is fantastic. And so, that's a way whereby you can start putting together your minimum viable product in a way that it's like, okay, I have the idea. I know, like, from within my industry, I understand how it works, how it doesn't work, how it could be improved from an operational point of view, from a strategic point of view, from a practical point of view. You've got this surround sound understanding of where all the different stakeholders sit within your industry, and how prompt engineering, whether you build it, whether you build it from scratch, whether you're literally asking it intelligent questions and turning it into a role as an advisor, or whether you're going through the route of using these pre-built models, doesn't matter. This is the way in. And the reason why I will always champion each and every one of us around our unfair competitive advantage is, again, our world is shifting, it's changing. So last week, Tuesday, I went to this fantastic book launch. I hope you can see it. It's called The Big Con. It's quite a thick book. I haven't had a chance to dive into it as yet, but it's by Professor Mariana Mazzucato. It was fantastic. And who is she, and why has she written this book, and why I think it's so timely that this book has come out? Because she's a professor of economics, and she is debunking and demystifying the perceived role and value of the global management consulting companies. So she names them: Boston Consulting, McKinsey, EY, KPMG, PwC, Deloitte. You kind of get the picture. These global companies, and what she is questioning, what she is deconstructing, is how much value, intrinsic value, do they actually contribute to our worlds, particularly from government's point of view, particularly from global businesses' point of view. And what she argues is the fact, the kind of subtitle to this is how the consulting industry weakens our businesses, infantilizes our governments, and warps our economies. I just think really potent. And what she's saying, as I said, I haven't read it in any great detail. I only got it on Tuesday, but it's this idea that governments and large corporations have ceded their powers to these large corporations that actually don't provide that much value. They will argue, well, our value is imbued in the fact that we recruit from around the world, top graduates with first-class degrees. We do all of that, and they bring the value. But if I contrast that with all of us that have this unfair competitive advantage, they may be straight out of these top universities, but we have this depth of knowledge, this depth of experience. And what we're doing is bringing it together with technology in the same way that these fresh-faced, graduates still have to go out and research the industries that we are steeped in. And that's the reason why I actively encourage this sense of this competitive, unfair advantage and how we can use it. Because, we're beginning to see, we're kind of demystifying this sense of how much value do these big corporations have if they are infantilizing corporations, if they are infantilizing governments, which disempowers them to make decisions that impact all of our lives. And what happens is they cede that to the powers of these global companies that don't actually provide greater value in the ways that you and I can and will do as we begin to marry up technology. So that's what I wanted to share with you today, this sense of, there's this industry, it's prompt engineering. You can approach it from, the tinkerer, the engineer who really wants to build something, like if you were a mechanical engineer back in the day and you found it difficult to get back into the world of work, or you want to upgrade your skills, or you're somebody who was exceptionally curious, like myself, who had no idea of how to write a line of code. Doesn't really matter where you are on that spectrum. The whole idea is that taking our expertise, taking our knowledge, taking our background, and marrying it with emerging technology in a way that's going to be meaningful to you, as well as adding value to companies. So that's it. for today's show. And if you've got any comments or questions, please put them in the comment box below. For those of you who come across this later on, sometime in the future, welcome. If you've got any ideas that you want to share, put them in the comment box below. And I'd love to know where all of you, any of you, are on this journey of looking at your background and thinking about how can technology help you move from one point to another point. Also, feel free, please, to subscribe to my channel and share this with anybody else who you think can benefit, whether it's your grandmother, grandfather, parent, uncle, aunt, friend, colleague. Share in terms of how baby boomers can be bring out their chops in a way that's meaningful to them. So that's it. That's what I wanted to share with you. Have a fantastic week, and I will see you all again next Sunday at 3:30 live here, where I will be bringing you more information, insights about whether it's a resource, whether it's a job, whether it's knowledge that I think is going to open up your world in a way that's meaningful to you. And you can go away and think about, how can I put that to good use? As I said, I will put the links of the Harvard CS50 in the comment box below, and also around the Google Auto ML. Stay well. I'll see you next week. Bye.